All right, well, just want to start this off by saying I'm sorry if I haven't responded to some of the comments. I haven't had internet for about a day and a half, almost 2 days really. I was using the data on my phone, the hotspot. I have no idea what's wrong with my internet. It's got to be the worst internet service in the entire world. It goes out all the time, constantly having to reset it. I finally broke down and just called the company, and they told me that it was going to be until July 14th before they could come out and fix it. And I was like, no way. And then, whatever, after I got, even the call got disconnected today, and I tried calling them back, and then my internet finally turned on, so whatever was going on was definitely on their part, and it works now, which is crazy, but at the same time, my Dish network was also not working today. It did thunderstorm for a tiny bit, but the Dish network was out for like 4 hours, which is weird. I mean, it always goes out when it thunderstorms, but it usually comes back on. Anyway, moral of the story, I didn't even get to watch this game, but Coastal Carolina actually did pull out the win. And all that 54 stuff I talked about, I want to show some other things that I noticed in this game. Although, like I said, I didn't get to watch the whole game, and it's kind of hard to look up some of these players' numbers and whatnot, considering they don't show them on ESPN, they don't have a Wikipedia page for most of them. So hopefully I can catch the game and watch it and see what's going on, but all I can do is read the play-by-play of the box score. But moral of the story, also my internet wasn't working, but my mom has internet through the same company, and I went to her house and her internet worked just fine. So I don't understand why my internet wasn't working. Just interesting. All this 54 stuff I've been talking about and talking about New Orleans and whatnot. Windstream, my internet, with the S exception, even equals 54 and 126 the big way, Just like New Orleans. Dish Network equals 146, another number that I was talking about in regards to these games. I'll show you a whole bunch of 146 as well this video, how it connects to even David Cameron resigning, the UK leaving the EU. Dish Network the small way also equals 56, which is just an interesting number around my life I've talked about before. I even turned 33 on a date numerology of 56. 5 months, 6 days later, I got really sick, and it was also on a date numerology of 56. And oddly enough, I've covered this number more than anything else, I think. Paris, France, 56. ISIS, 56. President, 56. Osama bin Laden, Adolf Hitler, Saddam Hussein, all equal 56. A long time ago, I was talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Abe Lincoln Civil War stuff, and I was talking about Fort Calhoun, Nebraska, and then there was the 141st school shooting after Sandy Hook that was in, I can't remember, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which just so happens to be where the principal got shot. It was my aunt's brother, who I'm not related to. She married my dad's brother, but her name equals 56. Her brother's name equals 56. I'm telling you, for some weird reason, what in the world? For some weird reason, I was supposed to see that. It even happened in Lincoln County or something like that. All kinds of stuff in regards to the Civil War. It was also on the 173rd day of the year. It happened on 173rd Street. Sioux Falls, South Dakota equals 173. But also, the reason I even bring this back up is because 56 and 146, actually I never even realized Dish Network also can equal 65 with the S exception. So interesting, I just noticed that right now. But I bring this up because we talked about all these train derailments and whatnot, and one of the train derailments that nobody seemed to really be talking about, so the main one that we've talked about a lot was on May 12th, 2015, and there was also a train wreck on October 5th in Vermont. There was rocks that fell onto the track and whatnot. And as I was doing research into it, I discovered that my aunt's mom and this guy and her brother or whatever, their mom is from she's from Vermont. I think it was Burlington, Vermont. I should have looked it up before I even made this video. But the span of days between these train wrecks was 146 days. I even talked about how the 9 of 23 stuff was good for, or I wasn't sure if it was good for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last year, Steph Curry shot 9 of 23 for the first time in his career. Against the Chicago Bulls even, it was the last game they lost before their home game win streak. Klay Thompson shot 9 of 23 for the first time in his career against the Chicago Bulls as well in a different game last year. And then they ended up winning the finals. And this year, LeBron James shot 9 of 23 on November 4th. 146 days later, Kyrie Irving shot 9 of 23. And I've always wondered if that was a good thing for them or not. And turns out, I'm pretty sure it was. You know, none of the Warriors shot 9 of 23 this year, only the Cavs. Anyway, interesting too, it's also 4 months, 23 days. I just talked about this in a couple videos back about how I put up my Prince video and then I got a copyright strike on an old video and it was on April 23rd. Literally, that's also the same day King Charles II was coronated as king. Also, you know, I talked about if Queen Elizabeth dies, then her son Prince Charles will become King Charles III. He's the Prince of Wales. Prince of Wales equals 146. United Kingdom equals 146. I also talked about in the College World Series, Alex Cunningham equals 146. Also equals 65 the small way. And then Andrew Beckwith, the other pitcher, equals 65 and 146. Also in today's game, where they won the College World Series, look how many pitches Coastal Carolina pitched. 146. Andrew Beckwith gets the win. Alex Cunningham gets the save. A total of 146 pitches. Also, you know, Coastal Carolina's name comes from Geoffrey Chaucer, right? Geoffrey Chaucer in Gematria also just so happens to equal 146. I wish I knew more about this guy. I don't really know anything about him. I need to do more research onto it. I got a feeling that something that he wrote has something to do with what's going on. You know, the Canterbury Tales. I remember hearing about that. I've never read anything of them and whatnot. So, like I said, I need to look more into it, but I got a good feeling there's something really significant about this guy. Anyway, today in the game, like I said, I didn't get to see this, but you find out that G.K. Young hit a home run. G.K. Young, though, is number 37. I saw that on Zach's blog. I don't remember where. On one of his posts, he talks about how G.K. Young was number 37. G.K. Young in Gematria just so happens to equal 100. But the small way, he equals 37. So he wears number 37. He is number 37. Remember, Carolina also equals 37. This was like the hometown kid who grew up in whatever the small town was, Conway, South Carolina. You know, and he wanted to be a Coastal Carolina player his whole life and whatnot. So interesting. Carolina 37, his name 37. He wears number 37. Also on Zachary K. Hubbard's blog, freetofindtruth.blogspot.com. I'm sure most of my subscribers actually came from him anyway, or are subscribed to him, you know, so that's why I don't usually mention it. But check this blog out. Tons of information. You know, he makes a ton of videos as well. So I'm just using this because I didn't watch the game for myself. But just before number 37 hits the home run, I guess there was a big error that caused pretty much, you know, it was pretty much the deciding factor of the game. The pitcher was number 3, and number 7 was batting, and then there was an error on the second baseman, this guy right here. So just wanted to point out the 37 stuff. What's interesting, though, about GK Young equals 100, if you write out 100 just so happens to equal 54. Now, Coastal Carolina, all about 54 stuff. Coastal Carolina, 54. Chanticleers equals 54. The college was founded in 1954. Omaha, Nebraska, founded in 1854. This was the stare-down kid, Sammy whatever, DiDonato, 54. Their little monkey, who was supposedly their good luck charm or whatever, Rafiki, also 54. They won their 54th game in Game 2 of the College World Series Finals or whatever. They won their 54th game with a score of 5-4 even. I even talked about in the last video how if you write out 55, it even equals 54, because I couldn't figure out why it would make sense for them to get 55 wins and win. Well, 55 equals 54. Arizona stayed on 49 wins for the season. 49 equals 54. 54 even equals 54. Baseball equals 54. I mean, a fitting number. Interesting, baseball also 18. Baseball 54 the big way, 18 the small way. I talked about I didn't think Arizona would win. I mean, I said they were going to win. I know I did. But I showed a lot of stuff that completely said I was wrong. And like I said, I don't even care. It's absolutely coded. But number 18, Alex Cunningham, was the closer in the game today. And I also talked about how the Pac-12 right now has 17 College World Series wins. This was the 17th game in the College World Series this year, and it was the 17th time that Arizona had made the College World Series. So interesting, if they would have got a win today, they would have won 18 times for the Pac-12, which didn't make that much sense because you would think it would have stayed on the 17 to match all them 17s. Even when you write out 17, it equals 109, just like Omaha, Nebraska. Also with the V exception, it also equals 55, but this website doesn't do it. 55, right? Coastal Carolina got their 55th win. Omaha, Nebraska with the S exception also equals 55. GK Young got his 18th home run of the season. Just so happened to be 109 days before his birthday even. And you remember when LeBron James he wore the Undertaker shirt, and then he also wore the Ultimate Warrior shirt, right? Undertaker in Gematria just so happens to equal 54 with the K exception. So 45, 54. Ultimate Warrior, he actually died at the age of 54. He dies at age 54. It was just after WrestleMania 30. He even died in Arizona. WrestleMania 30 is also where The Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania. He became 21-1. Just reminds me a lot of Gary Gilmore. The whole thing was all about Gary Gilmore winning in his 21st season and whatnot. But the reason I bring this up is because WrestleMania 30 just so happened to be, it was in New Orleans, right? There's a huge New Orleans connection. So it was in New Orleans. We just had the death of Buddy Ryan, which I said I think might have been a sacrifice for Arizona, considering he was the defensive coach for the 85 Bears in Super Bowl XX. Interesting, just the X stuff too. WrestleMania XXX, Super Bowl XX. And right, he is famous for inventing the 4-6 defense. Chicago equals 46. They won 46-10 in Super Bowl 20. But it was also in New Orleans. Another thing I never showed in the last video, look at his professional head coaching record. 55, 55-1. So he won 55 and lost 55. Now Coastal Carolina gets their 55th win. They were trying to be better than the 2010 Coastal Carolina team that had 55 wins. This year we even had Peyton Manning, who, the Broncos quarterback, wins the. Peyton Manning wears number 18, was in his 18th season, from New Orleans, Louisiana, the 18th state. First play of the Super Bowl was an 18-yard pass to number 81. And check this out. Look at Buddy Ryan's real name, James David Ryan. Look what it is in gematria, 146. Interesting, 1965 in Jewish gematria. I mean, I've been talking all about how it's just all about the prince. There's tons of prince stuff. Prince equals 65. And like I've shown, 65 also a number that coincides a lot with 146. In regards to that even, like when I'm thinking about it, I talked about how June 6th was Donald Trump's 70th birthday. It also was Pope Francis's 1189th day as being the Pope, matching the chapters in the King James Bible and whatnot. But the 146th Pope was even only Pope for 56 days. What's interesting too, I've also talked a lot about if King Charles becomes the king, I don't think that he's going to live very long, considering that King Charles I was executed, King Charles II was banished to France, but then later came back, so who knows. But interesting, there's this thing, supposedly a fake conspiracy made up by this guy, Titus Oates, called the Popish Plot. And basically he said that the Jesuits or the Catholic Church was going to assassinate King Charles II. Well, in gematria, Popish Plot also equals 146. The small weight equals 56, and with the S exception, 65. Anyway, back to the 54 stuff. So I even showed, we'll just type in a few more. So Istanbul, Turkey, we just had the terrorist attack there, equals 54. In the previous video, I talked about how Barack Obama is 54. I talked about how it's connected to the gay agenda and whatnot. And there's all the stuff about Michelle Obama actually being Michael Obama and being a tranny and whatnot. And I showed Michelle Obama even equals 54. I even talked about Joan Rivers and all kinds of other stuff. But what's interesting is that we just had Brexit and all that other stuff. Just lots of stuff in regards to the UK and whatnot. So David Cameron steps down as Prime Minister, or he's going to step down. And he says October, possibly sooner. But he just so happens to be the 53rd Prime Minister. So we're awaiting the 54th Prime Minister. David Cameron in gematria, 55 and 109. Remember, Omaha, Nebraska with the S exception equals 55. The big way, it also equals 109. If you write out 55, it equals 54. David Cameron even born on October 9th, 10/9. He's also the Prime Minister. So like I said, we're awaiting the 54th Prime Minister. Prime Minister in gematria equals 78. Also 87 with the S exception and 168. Queen Elizabeth equals 168 and 87. 87 I've talked about a whole lot in regards to the number 219, which ironically, Coastal Carolina and Arizona's first game of the season was on February 19th, a lot like 219. I talked about how the Philadelphia train wreck on May 12th, if you go 87 days later, it is 8/7, August 7th. I also mentioned how August 7th is the exact halfway point between Queen Elizabeth's 64th anniversary being queen and her 65th anniversary of being the queen. It's 183 days both ways. But check out what August 7th also the 219th day normally in a non-leap year. But it leaves 146 days until the end of the year. Brexit also just so happens to equal 78. August 7th can either be written as 8/7 or 7/8. Interesting, it even equals the same as Prime Minister. Brexit also 45 days before 8/7. Just interesting, because I talk about how 45 and 54, they're the mirrors. Who knows? There's a lot of stuff with it, but 45, the 45th prime number, also just so happens to be 197, just like the word Prince, and Charles even has a connection to it. Prince 197, I even talked about LeBron equals 197. I'm not even going to type it. LeBron equals 197 in Jewish. If you write out Charles, Charles also equals 207. But if you write out 207, it equals 197. So anyway, I wondered when David Cameron was actually going to resign, and I came up with this. So basically, there's an election on September 9th of 2016, and the winner will almost certainly succeed Cameron as Prime Minister. We just had Boris Johnson come out and say that he doesn't want to run anymore or whatever. The dude looks exactly like Donald Trump, But so he's not running, but now this guy today also says that he's going to run, Michael Gove. And it makes a little bit more sense. Look at Boris Johnson and Gematria. Maybe there's some other things connecting it, but Boris Johnson doesn't really seem to be connected to any of this as far as I know, or that I have noticed. 158, 158, 59. Also 68, so with 68 and 77 with the S's exceptions. So could make sense. Prince Charles also equals 68, but Michael Gove, 55, and also 100. And one of the things I don't think I mentioned in the beginning, I'll show you here, 146. I don't know why I didn't mention this, but 146 equals 100, right? Just like GK Young down here. GK Young equals 100. 146 equals 100. If you write out 100, it equals 54. So kind of like a weird web, but interesting how it all goes together. Anyway, it says that this election is on 9/9, which is interesting considering that Queen Elizabeth last year in 2015 became the longest reigning British monarch of all time, right? On 9/9. I talked a whole lot about 9/9 in regards to political assassinations as well. Maybe I'll leave a little note. I'm not going to re-explain it all. But before I even show any more here, so May 25th is the 146th day normally. 525. September 9th just so happens to be the 252nd day. Who knows? Just interesting, a lot of the 5-2 and whatever. Queen Elizabeth became the queen in 52 at the age of 25 even. Also though, if you go from Brexit to 9/9, just so happens to be a span of 78 days, right? Brexit equals 78, Prime Minister equals 78. 9/9 just so happens to have a date numerology of 54. 9 plus 9 plus 20 plus 16 equals 54 even. The date numerology for Brexit, 6 plus 23 plus 16, that equals 45. If you add the 20 on there, it equals 65. So, pretty interesting. So, just wanted to point out 54 and 146 seem to be pretty special numbers as of late. I've been talking about it for a while. Even like the Cleveland Cavaliers coach was David Michael Blatt. He got fired 122 days before his birthday, and he got fired on 1/22, the same day Steve Kerr came back, but his name equals 146. I even talked about how there was a deadly pileup on I-78 in Pennsylvania. It was on Lupercalia, the first day of Lupercalia, the same day that Antonin Scalia died and whatnot, the 44th day. But just interesting, I-78, it says it was near Fredericksburg. Fredericksburg equals 146 in Gematria. They even tell you it was a prime factor, who knows, the prime factor of 78 a lot. I mean, 2 and 13, but who knows? I even talked about Dish Network in here because my Dish Network wasn't working around this time as well. Also, John Calipari got ejected on this day after 146 seconds. That's how they reported it. John Calipari was a former 76er coach with Larry Brown. Larry Brown equals 146. Allen Iverson, the big star of Philadelphia. He's super surrounded with the number 56. I have like a 6-part video on him. His whole life was about 56. The small way, he equals 56. Larry Brown also equals 56. I talked a whole lot. Philadelphia is connected to Revelation. It was named after Revelation. The Golden State Warriors, originally from Philadelphia. Philadelphia is where the Fresh Prince is from, and Philadelphia equals 65, just like when you write out the word prince. In the Bible, it's even mentioned in Revelation 1:11 and Revelation 3:7, right? The 37 that I just talked about in the beginning. So, interesting, if you write out 37, it equals 165. When I was getting the copyright claims on my old videos in regards to the Prince stuff, which you have to go check out, there's a whole bunch of videos in a playlist I made where YouTube was copyright striking my old videos and stuff, but they were showing me the number 165, 134, and 135. 37 just so happens to equal 165, just like Scottish Rite. If you write out Scottish Rite Freemasonry, it equals 115, 134 equals 115, 135 equals 115. So all 3 of the numbers that I kept getting shown all sync up to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. So, I mean, who do you think was showing me these numbers, by copyright claiming my videos at weird times? And I don't know, pretty amazing. June 14th also, right? June 14th, 14/6, a lot like 146. Just so happens to be the 165th day of the year in a normal year, so just wanted to point that out. One last thing I want to talk about. I'm just presenting a bunch of information. I don't know. I just want to get it out there so we can figure out this puzzle. But October 5th, so I said that Vermont train wreck was 146 days after the Philadelphia train wreck. On October 5th, which just so happens to leave 87 days left until the end of the year even. So, I got more research to do. Just wanted to post a video. I'm going to go and try to respond to a few comments and whatnot since I finally have internet. Who knows, Interesting this day. I just feel like there's something special about this Vermont train wreck that got overlooked. Not very many people really talked about it. But 10/5, blood moon also equals 105. Lots of 105 I was talking about a while back. And blood moons were a big part of what they were showing me in my copyright claim videos. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what was going on. I kept noticing the same patterns and whatnot, so who knows, Prince even died on the night of a full moon. There was another blood moon, or a 5th partial blood moon, on March 23rd, 3/23. That blood moon even 3 months, 7 days, or 99 days before today, when Coastal Carolina wins the College World Series. But yeah, done rambling. Just wanted to show the connections between the 54 and the 146 and how it connected to Brexit and also the College World Series. So, whatever. Have a good one.